You're listening to Bye Bye Baby, a Dob Berman production.
Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the Bye Bye Baby podcast. I'm your babysitter Mariana and I'm here with
Tori
and
Madi.
And this week we're going to talk about bisexuality versus pansexuality and other labels. Just a quick note before we start. If you're not old enough to watch Deadpool, then you're not old enough to listen to this podcast. So, to start off with, I have some definitions of various labels in the middle of the spectrum of sexuality. The first one is bisexuality, which is the most commonly known in the LGBT community and outside of it. Bisexuality has many definitions. Some people, it's very personal to the person, to each individual. But there is one major definition that is accepted by most people, and that is when you are attracted to two or more genders. This is usually described as being attracted to men and women, but this is not always the case. And we're gonna have some more notes on that in a moment. The next sexuality that I have written down is pansexuality, which we have talked about a little bit in our coming out episode, and which occasionally comes up as well, since two of our members identify as pansexual or use the pansexual label. Sometimes. And it is commonly defined as when you are attracted to all genders and or do not concern gender when you are attracted to someone. Once again, this will enter the discussion a little bit later. There are some other sexualities that are a bit less known to the general public. Some people in the LGBT community know about it as well, but even then, some of them are a bit obscure, let's just say. There's bicuriosity, and we have a full episode on bicuriosity out right now, so do check it out if you want to know more about it. But just to give you guys the textbook definition, is someone who is open to experiment with people of different genders, but aren't sure if they want to pursue a relationship. Then we have polysexuality, which for a long time I didn't quite know that existed in general, but it is when you are attracted to many genders, not just two. And then there is the umbrella term queer, which we'll also talk about in a bit more depth. But queer is basically the big umbrella term for most of the LGBT community. It does not just mean that you're in the middle of the spectrum and that you are attracted to several genders. It can mean that you are homosexual, or it can mean even some transsexual people use it. Anyone in the community can use this term, and a lot of people do for different sexualities and in different situations. Mm-hmm. It's a reclaimed slur, and a lot of people find that it's empowering to use this label. I personally use this label just because sexuality and romantic identification can be so confusing, but again, some people do not like it, so...
I'm pretty sure you're the only person that I know that actually uses queer as their identification, just because there's so many labels to choose from, and human beings like to label things. So identifying with a certain group of people and not just queer, which seems so overarching. But yeah, I think you're the only person that I know that actually uses that term.
Really?
Or not term, but identifier.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. I don't know why. Oh, that makes me feel good somehow.
Not sure why.
And and on the last note, something that we didn't know about right before this podcast began is the peri-oriented and very-oriented labels, which threw us off a little bit. Peri-oriented meaning that your romantic identity and your sexual identity match, and you are attracted to the same gender or same group of genders, and very oriented, meaning that your romantic and sexual identity don't match. And we had a bit of a talk before the podcast began about this because we didn't know that was a thing, that was a name to it. And
it seems so complicated to include that. Like,
yeah, I'm like gearing myself up here.
I feel like if I don't know, your sexuality is something where it's like, okay, well, you need that just to be able to, you know, let people know who you could be interested in. And then I feel like your romantic orientation is something that's more like personal. So something that you would probably tell someone once you're already in a relationship, either friends or romantic.
Yeah. I don't know. Adding in the last two labels that you mentioned, I think that's just confusing.
It's too much.
For me personally, it's confusing. However, I fully stand by, like, if you find empowerment in your labels, which I do, I'm empowered by saying that I'm bisexual. Great. I hope you're empowered by it. And if adding multiple layers to it empowers you even more, by all means, do you, boo-boo. But I definitely think that, like, when you're first introducing yourself to people, adding in all of those other labels, it can get confusing.
Yeah.
Mainly to people that aren't within the community, it's really confusing. Like, I know that when I've had conversations with my parents about the LGBT community, they are so open-minded. They don't care who you love, who you fuck. They don't care. They just start getting confused when all of these other labels are thrown in. So I think it depends on, like, the situation that you're in and, like, the people you're talking to. Like, if you're in, like, at an LGBT sort of event, it makes sense to use these other labels. But I think for society right now, it's too confusing to add in too many while they're still, like, adjusting.
Especially when you're just, like, when you're just meeting someone that's, like, I mean, there was a while ago, like, when the LGBT community was, like, on the rise, I suppose, there was, like...
Gays were on the rise!
But, like, it was becoming less of a stigma in, you know, in more populated areas. And I don't want to say it was becoming fashionable or popular, but it was definitely becoming, you know, kind of expected that you should be accepting of these people. And if you weren't, you're kind of, you know, you're behind the times, you're an asshole. But before gays were on the rise, like, straight people or whatever would be, like, offended that we didn't let them know that we were straight or that we weren't straight when we introduced ourselves. Like, guys, this is something that I've definitely come across, like, not me personally because I'm bisexual, but one of my friends back home was a lesbian, and she would say that she would, like, go out to, like, bars and stuff and just be talking to a dude or talking to her friends, and, like, her girlfriend would come over and, like, it would be obvious that they're dating, and the guy that she would be talking to would be, like, offended that she didn't let him know that she was a lesbian before that, which is, like,
that just sounds like toxic masculinity to me.
That is definitely toxic masculinity.
All right. I think we should start with defining bisexuality, or at least having a little discussion about bisexuality, because there was, I don't know if this was everywhere, but I remember seeing this sort of war online about the definition of bisexuality, saying bisexuality was transphobic, that bisexual people were transphobic and they weren't trans inclusive, and I happen to have feelings about that, but I do know that
I'm definitely not
Madi
transphobic.
has very strong feelings about that. So Madi, do you want to open up this discussion?
Yeah, if I'm gonna be frank, that fucking pisses me off. Because
You're not transphobic.
I'm not transphobic. I would date somebody that's trans, 100%. For me, what bisexuality means is being attracted to male and female and everything in between. Because I have maybe a different view than a lot of people in the LGBT community do about gender. Personally, I believe that there's only two genders, but there is a spectrum in between them. So someone can either be on that spectrum wherever they fall, or they're not on that spectrum and they're non-binary.
Right.
Because gender fluid people, they're still on the spectrum of male and female. They're just kind of
Flip-flopping.
floating around. Like,
Yeah.
it changes day to day, depends.
How they feel.
Yeah, like...
That's literally what fluid means.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So as far as bisexuality goes, I don't know. I kind of flip-flop between bisexual and pansexual just because I've only had relationships with people who are cis. So I feel like I can't say that I'm pan because I haven't experienced a relationship with a non-binary person, or I haven't experienced a relationship with a genderqueer or a gender fluid person. So I feel like I shouldn't use that terminology, even though I feel like I'd be open to having that relationship with them.
But pansexuality doesn't mean that you have to have... It's the same as saying that for you to be bisexual, you have to have had a relationship with both a man and a woman. It doesn't come into play at all. Pansexuality, at its core, it's basically that you're attracted to all genders, not just a few.
Right.
And that you do not concern yourself with gender when you're attracted to someone. So basically,
That's
you don't
the
care.
important bit.
Yeah. So basically,
I
you don't
definitely
care.
consider gender. Like,
Yeah.
I mean,
See,
gender's part of the reason.
Yeah, like, I have different things I'm attracted to in women than men. Like, I'm definitely, I've mentioned before that, like, I'm demisexual. I kind of, like, I fall in love with the person first, before becoming, like, attracted to their outsides. But I definitely have things with men that I'm attracted to specifically, and there's things with women that I'm attracted to specifically, whether that's physically or, like, mentally or, like, personality-wise. So, like, when it comes to my attractions to people, gender is something that plays a part in it.
Right.
But someone that's pansexual, their gender has nothing to do with it, right?
Yeah, see, to me, it's a bit more on the pansexuality side. And we touched upon this briefly on a private discussion that we had about Youngblood.
You guys talked about Youngblood together?
You were there too. It was on.
I was?
Yeah, it was during the Friends game on Friendsgiving.
Oh,
Him's such a good boy.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's basically
He's
both.
just such a gentle soul.
I'm mostly attracted to very androgynous people in general. So right there and then, it doesn't
He's
really matter.
definitely androgynous.
Yes.
I agree.
So it doesn't really matter right there and then if they're male or female, because to me the more you can tell, usually the more attracted I am to them. Which is something
The
that
less you can tell.
the less you can tell, the more I'm attracted to them. Which I never thought about it until a friend of mine pointed out about, like, all my celebrity crushes, and I was like, wow, that's
funny.
That is very funny. And secondly, to me, I really sometimes, and again, I can objectively tell that, like, an actor / actress are, like, very attractive, even if they're, like, super feminine or super masculine. So there's I can still feel attraction to them in those cases. But to me, when I have a massive celebrity crush, is when
They're androgynous.
not only when they're androgynous, but it's usually like I start off not really being attracted to them physically, but then I get to know their personality Like, I see their personality, I see interviews, I see this or that,
Right.
and then I fall head over heels for
Yeah.
them,
That's that.
you know?
Also, that
Yeah.
demisexuality
Yes.
coming out to play.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's definitely their personality that makes me feel attracted to them, and it actually makes them more attractive physically in my eyes. I saw a picture of him, like, it was right before I listened to one of his music videos. I just saw a picture of him, and I was like, oh, he looks like such a fucking wanker. and and I was like, I'm not gonna like him at all. And then I listened to the song, it was Parents, and he talked about fucking his best friend in the
Yeah.
backyard. About, like, they said, like, his dad said,
Yeah,
like,
just
you
to
ever
piss his
slept with
dad
a
off.
man? And he, like, and then he just tied his dad up, and it's a really funny song. And then I was like, oh, that sounds gay. I'm gonna look into what type
That
of human.
sounds gay.
In the best way possible.
I'm gonna look at what kind of human he is. And I saw a bunch of interviews, and I saw a bunch of stuff about him, and I was like, wow, he's such a good person. And next time I saw him, the same video, he was like 1,000 times more attractive. I was like, ooh,
Yeah.
oh my god, his eyes, his lips, his hair. And like, I was so annoyed by those features before, and now I was like, ooh, oh my god, he's
And he
so
wears
attractive.
dresses and skirts.
Yes.
I've seen that, yeah.
Yeah, and so I definitely think I'm very textbook pansexual on that aspect. So
Yeah.
I mean, that's my sister too. She identifies as pansexual, and
whoop, whoop.
she definitely sees it as more of a there's probably not a person that she wouldn't be attracted to on some level. Like, she's just kind of like, whoop, I'd go for anyone.
Yeah.
Which makes her sound a little easy, but
I think, damn, I should have said this in the Demi episode, but like, I'm thinking about it now, and it totally makes sense that, like, you mentioned how, you know, you don't really necessarily find them physically attractive at first. It's you start to enjoy their personality. Well, that kind of reminds me of, like, if you date someone and, like, you think they're so attractive when they're dating them, and then you break up and you don't have that, like, emotional feeling towards them anymore, and you don't enjoy their personality, you're like, wow, they're not attractive at all. Like, physically, you don't see them as attractive anymore.
I feel like I go through that anyway, but that's just more of a, I'm biased because they pissed me off. Like,
No, for, like, I've felt that before, where I was like, I don't have that same sort of, like, I'm not attracted to them at all anymore because
that's interesting.
I don't enjoy their personality as much as I used to. I don't know.
I've experienced that to some degree. Again, I haven't been in a relationship. I mentioned this in a previous episode, and I haven't really, like, had a very serious crush or ever really loved someone before, but I've definitely had some crushes in the past when something might have happened. I might have been friends with a person, or even just admired that person from afar, and then something happened with that person that made me see them in a less favorable light. And I was like, wow, why was I ever attracted to this person in the first place? I
Yeah.
definitely do not feel attracted to this person anymore. So I do understand where you're coming from.
So on the opposite of that, because I'm not demisexual or demi-romantic, I've definitely still felt attraction towards someone when I've broken up with them. Like, god damn it, they're so hot. I hate it. So
Yeah.
Actually,
total
that's-
opposite feeling. But
Yeah,
like,
I don't feel that at all.
Yeah, actually, I never considered that to be a demi thing. That is interesting.
But that's what I was saying. Is like, I wish I would have said this before, but I didn't make the connection until
Yeah.
just now.
Yeah.
That, like,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
It does make sense, yeah. So
I fall out of attraction with people if they piss me off and their true colors show.
So, what do you guys think? Bisexuality versus pansexuality. I have a friend actually who I had a debate with, and she mentioned that pansexuality is now kind of stealing the thunder from bisexuality, because
stealing the thunder.
Yeah.
Stealing the thunder. It
Isn't
sounds
a
like
competition.
I was gonna say it's not a fucking competition.
No,
It's not a popularity contest. That's what that
Yeah.
sounds like.
not not as in pansexuality stole the thunder, but it's because bisexual people have suffered a lot through the years because we're both
You okay?
Because-
Sorry, I choked on air.
because we were both, our existence was both denied by heterosexual people and by homosexual people. So a lot of people.
Come on.
Yeah.
We
a
will.
Good one.
Oh, we have to get that in. A lot of people have denied the existence of bisexual, saying we were greedy, that we were indecisive.
It's just
that
a phase. All
It's
that
a
stuff.
phase, all that
It's
stuff.
not a phase, Mom.
So the argument that my friend made was that now that bisexuality is starting to become accepted after a lot of struggle, a lot of arguing with both sides of this coin, now that we're starting to become accepted, new sexualities come along, like pansexuality and polysexuality, that don't really have as much of a struggle. Now they're like, oh, I'm pan. And they're like, oh, okay, I've accepted bi people, so I'm accepting pan people as well.
We've
And
kind
they're just
of-
like
We've
leeching
laid-
off.
Yeah, we've laid the groundwork already for newer labels. So I'm really excited for
Yeah.
the day where we make alien contact and then there's like a sexuality only for aliens.
Yes.
Like I am alien sexual.
Same. They're babes.
Yeah.
So do you guys have any opinions on that? On the fact that pansexuality might be kind of like piggyback riding off the struggles of bisexual people?
I mean, good for them. Like I would not wish the kind of struggle that a lot of bisexuals had on pansexuals. I feel like they would get more they would get more flack, 10 or 20 years back. Not just because, bisexuality wasn't readily accepted, but also like it's difficult. Like even now, like I don't get accepted in every single circle I walk into if I go in saying that I'm bisexual. I get called a slut or I get called greedy, like you were saying. So I'm good for them. I'm glad.
Yeah.
I'm glad to have gone, I'm glad, I guess, for the bisexual community to have gone through that first so that the pansexual community can kind of come out in peace.
And on another note, what do you think of, for example, me, who, after this podcast, thank you. But me, who, after this episode, I pretty much cemented my pansexuality label. Mm-hmm. On the opposite side, you've pretty much solidified a little bit of your bisexuality label.
Yeah, I'm solid.
So, what do you think of people like me just sort of using bisexual sometimes, just not have the hassle of having to explain what pansexuality means?
I feel like it's the same as saying that you're bisexual even though you're demisexual, or saying that you're just not dating right now if you're asexual. It's no one else's business what you really are.
It's no one else's business.
Oh, thank you guys.
I am all for sharing, yo.
Yeah.
It's okay to I give you permission to use the bisexual label. I'd be interested to know, like, how many bisexuals are kind of doing the same thing you are. Like, saying that they're bisexual, but just because saying that they're pan is more of a loaded answer. Yeah.
You don't have it in you all the time to explain personal things. You don't have to define what pansexuality is to every person that doesn't know what it is. If it's easier for you, if you're just having a bad day and you just don't feel like explaining it and you just want to say you're bisexual because you don't want to take the time to further explain it, that's fine.
Yeah.
Once again, like, your sexuality is no one else's business. It's yours to share if you choose to do so.
On a small tangent, I think I also kind of like choose sometimes to just use the label bi, because I don't know, but to me, I kind of see, like, bisexual is like the umbrella term for the entire middle spectrum. Mm-hmm. Like, you're bi, like, you're in the middle, you're attracted to some degree to genders, to more than one gender. Mm-hmm. So I do see that bisexuality is a bit of like, you kind of like how, for example, you use cookie, like, or in Well, for example,
It's so weird to hear you say cookie
cookie. Why?
because you never say cookie.
Biscuits.
You say biscuit.
See, because here in the UK, they taught me that biscuit is like the umbrella term for all types of
Biscuits.
biscuits. and then within
I was
biscuits,
waiting to see if she
How
would
do you
say
fir-
cookie or biscuit. I
How
was
do you
like,
further define a biscuit?
and then within biscuits, you have cookies, which are specifically the chocolate chip cookies.
Oh yeah, I remember
Those
you
are
saying that.
cookies.
That's it? Like only chocolate chip?
Yes, only chocolate chip are cookies. From what I know, again, I might be wrong. I am not British. I did not grow up in UK.
Oatmeal
This
cookies.
is what people explain to me. Those would be oatmeal biscuits.
No.
And then there's a bunch more terminology for different types of patisserie.
Patisserie.
Yeah. So there's a lot more like names for different, I don't know, biscuits. But the umbrella term is biscuits. So to me, bisexuality is like the biscuit of the LGBT community, of the bisexuality gender at least.
Hashtag biscuits.
Are bisexual.
Bisexual biscuits.
Bisexual biscuits. So, okay. I actually collected some information for today, and this is very and this is based on a UK study of people over 16 years old, and they collected 108,100 valid responses, and out of those, 61% of respondents identified as homosexual, 26% as bisexual, 4% as pansexual, 2% as asexual, and 1% as queer.
Yeah, queer is not a very popular term, but...
You're in that 1%, Mariana.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
you
love
are.
being special.
So is this of only LGBT
Yes.
people?
Oh
That
my
is-
god,
Ima-
imagine 61% of the UK population is homosexual.
It's like a gay island.
Oh my god, you guys, that actually happened. There was a literal, like, LGBT kingdom.
What?
An LGBT kingdom.
I'm not kidding. Hold on.
What?
It was called the Gay and Lesbian Kingdom of the Coral Sea Islands.
Fuck? Where is that?
It was by Australia. It's like a collection of islands in
Like in
north-
Samoa?
northeast.
Like the
Yeah.
Samoan island sort of area? Polynesia!
Yeah, kind of.
Polynesia.
That's more
it's
towards the
technically-
middle.
Okay, ignore me when I
No.
said Samoan. I
It's-
don't know what the fuck
it's
I was saying. I
technically-
meant like Polynesia.
It's technically a part of Oceania because it's literally
Oceania!
just off the coast of Australia is the Coral Sea
Yeah.
Islands.
Okay.
And so there was this
What the fuck?
in 2014 it was declared as the Gay and Lesbian Kingdom of the Coral Sea Islands. It was a constitutional monarchy, and the only emperor was Emperor Dale Parker Anderson.
Oh, good old Dale.
Its anthem was "I am what I am," and its capital city was Heaven, Cato Island.
Wow. I have so many questions.
It was disbanded or whatever in 2017, so it's over now, which makes me bummed because I would have really liked.
But
to
like,
visit.
why? What happened? Was there like
It was
some
because
sort of?
it was because marriage wasn't, or homosexual marriage wasn't allowed in Australia yet.
Oh, and then
it became
legal, and
and
they're
so
like,
they were
okay, we'll
"There's
just go
no
back.
point." Yeah.
Oh.
It was literally. It wasn't like it was like a full city or anything. It was basically like camping. Like it was just a bunch of people who were on these islands and they were just like hanging out.
I would have loved
For
to
like
be
3
there.
straight years, these people were just out there.
Being gay in the wild. Hashtag gay in the wild.
Wild gays.
Watch out for the wild gays. Oh my god. Did you guys ever have to... I can't even fucking say it.
Tell me.
Did you guys ever have to read Robinson Crusoe?
No.
No.
Oh my god, that ruined the punchline of my joke.
We'll
Okay.
say it anyway.
Well, in Robinson Crusoe, I don't know if you know anything about Robinson Crusoe.
No.
I know a little bit.
It is like the most... It's like pulling teeth to read. It's fucking awful because a lot of people say it's like the first novel ever written.
That's the only thing I know about it is that it's...
So, once you read that book, like you realize that a lot of books ever since then, you can always relate it back to Robinson Crusoe. and it's so fucking annoying. But
It's that, like,
The-
6 degrees of Robinson Crusoe.
the whole idea of, the whole idea, the thing that made me think of it is that Robinson Crusoe ends up on a fucking island, and they always talk about the savages on the island, and that they're it's just like a tribe of like cannibals. And so I'm imagining someone getting shipwrecked on like the island of the kingdom of the
gay
coral.
and lesbian kingdom of the Coral Sea
Yes,
Islands.
yes. I'm imagining someone getting shipwrecked there, and they're like, "Oh no, the savages!" And it's just a bunch of gays. They're just running around in their banana hammocks, like they're just living their life.
They're fine, like... Look it up. Like, seriously, all of the pictures of them are literally them in, like, swimsuits, and they're all just, like, camping out, and they're like, hey.
Your little, like, hand motion that you keep doing, it just is cracking me up. You, like, bobble your head, you know?
So getting back to topic, actually, there's just one more statistic that I'd like to
Okay,
share.
guys, back to numbers.
back to math. This should be Maddie's area.
I'm not great at math. I'm just,
She's just better
good
than
with
us.
numbers.
So
There's a difference.
there is one more statistic in the same report, and the report will be linked down below on YouTube. And if you are listening to this on Spotify, we will be sure to link it in our other social media, so you can go and find it.
So,
And-
what was the last
And the statistic was that younger people are more likely to identify as bi, pan, ace, and queer than older people. And by younger, they mean under 35. So
That
people
makes
with 39% of people under 35 identified with one of these labels, and only 14% of people over 35 identified with one of these labels. So,
That's interesting.
yeah.
I mean,
guess-
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely think so.
That's
So,
interesting.
closing thoughts?
Well,
Advice.
for advice. So as far as advice, I guess I would say, like, do some research. Like, I mean, in my case, I was kind of confused between bi and pan. So do some research. Ask some people, especially if you're involved in the community. Ask some people around you. And
Email us. If you
email
want.
us. Yeah.
If
ask
you don't,
us.
yeah, if you don't know anyone around you, just email us asking your questions, and we'll do the best to answer.
Yeah.
What's my advice?
Can I go with mine?
What's your
Well,
Yeah,
think-
you go ahead.
My advice is don't stress about it. Honestly, for me, the progression from bi to pan was pretty natural. I once just read the definition somewhere, and I was like, wow, this is me on so many levels. And I started using it, but like I said, I flopped back and forth because personally, I view bi as an umbrella term and pan just sort of like a specific or like a more specific definition that lets other people know me. So honestly, use one, use the other, use both. As long as you're being respectful towards the community, towards other people, you can use any labels that you want because it just means you are being you, and as long as you feel comfortable, that's all that matters.
Well, I'm gonna come in with not so deep advice. If you are someone that assumes that bisexuality excludes people that are trans, just stop. Stop thinking that way, because it's shitty, and you're painting us to be people that we're not.
Yeah, that would be the one thing I would say. Don't use bisexuality as a label if you're against trans people.
Yeah.
Yes, just no one wants you here. Bye.
We are
Like-
we are trans inclusive friends.
Yeah, we
Yeah. All the sexualities that we talked about here today are trans inclusive. If someone who identifies with any of these sexualities are not trans inclusive, that's not the sexuality's fault. It's that person's fault for being a dick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so let us know in the comments below or through our email, byebyebabypodcast@gmail.com, what type of biscuit you are. What type of biscuit are you guys?
I'm a ginger snap.
I like to think of myself as a sugar cookie.
You're definitely a sugar cookie.
White
Yes,
as
you are.
fuck and
100%.
sweet as hell.
Yep.
Yes. Well, I am Blush Maria, which basically means Maria cookie. It's not that deep, honestly.
But what is that?
What does it
It's
taste
basically sort of like butter biscuit, like a butter
Like a
cookie.
shortbread?
No,
Yum.
it's like this basically. It's this basic. Honestly, guys, Google it. It's like this round biscuit cookie thing that's super plain, and we use it to make a dessert, which I'm actually gonna ask my mom to send some for me to make it for you guys.
So
It's good.
you're plain. Oh, sorry, I spit.
I'm plain.
So you're plain.
I'm plain.
But
You can be made
I'm
into
plain.
delicious desserts.
yeah, I wasn't going to phrase it that way. I was gonna say that you're.
I'm
She's
plain.
over here dancing.
Because I'm trying to say the tagline.
She's plain, but
I'm plain, buttery, and Portuguese. Just like the cookie.
She just did like a whole body roll and it was amazing. Okay,
That is
so
my tagline.
anyway, find us on
Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, or Tumblr at Bye Bye Baby Podcast. And that's it for this week, guys.
bye bye, babies.
Bye.